Federal Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Development, in partnership with the World Bank Nigeria, concluded its 2025 initiative and the 16 Days of Activism campaign with a high-level national dialogue on ending gender-based violence in Abuja and Lagos. The event convened government officials, civil society development partners, including traditional and faith leaders, while also the media was part of the meeting to strengthen efforts against violence toward women and girls. Discussions focused on the rising prevalence of GBV, including online abuse, and its economic and societal impact. Government commitment is under sharp focus, including domestication of the VAPP Act, expansion of survivor support initiatives, and operationalization of the National GBV Strategy. Stakeholders also agreed on accelerating reforms in prosecution, data collection, online safety, and women-focused financing. Now, joining us for a conversation on this is Gladys Emmanuel. She joins us from Abuja. She is a human rights lawyer and gender advocate. Gladys, it's nice to have you around on the news.
Hello, good evening.
Of course.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, you're welcome. So how do you assess the level of awareness that has been created from this year's of 16 Days of Activism against gender-based violence in Nigeria?
So this year's 16 Days of Activism with the theme Unite to End Digital Violence Against All Women and Girls, we witnessed an impressive wave of awareness creation across Nigeria, especially with grassroots communities, youth-based organizations, and even on the digital level. Taking my organization, for instance, we had what was called the 16 Days of Intergenerational Awareness Post, where we had persons both from millennials, Gen Z, and even the oldies join online towards advancing message against digital violence. We equally saw stronger community engagement. More visible was participation from various civil society organizations, including women-led organizations. We saw traditional leaders or gatekeepers being engaged actively. We saw a significant rise in digital advocacy. We, in fact, saw conversations around technologically facilitated gender-based violence, things around online safety, the red flags, survivor-centered approaches and reporting. All of this were brought to the fore. So in a nutshell, awareness was improved during this period of 16 days of activism. But one thing that we are asking from all stakeholders, from communities, is translating this awareness now into behavioral changes, because that's where we start to see or reap the fruits of all the awareness or advocacy that we have been undertaking in the course of the 16 days of activism, and even before the 16 days of activism. We're equally requesting institutional commitment, both from government, from traditional gatekeepers, from law enforcement, from the judiciary, and we're looking forward to budget backed government action, which is one of the biggest gaps when we look at addressing gender-based violence as a whole, and not just only digital violence. One of the issues, major issues or headaches, is the absence of adequate funding. So yes, we've made progress in this year, but we need a more sustained approach and a year-round sensitization. So in as much as 16 days of activism has ended, we do not want the awareness creation to end. We want it to be sustained at all levels. So basically, yes, we have done very well in this year's 16 days of activism than the previous years.
Yeah, so we hear of tech-facilitated abuse against women. And you also talked about funding, which is quite important. Now, how has the data been in terms of funds raised, most especially now that conversations have gone around abuse against women that has to do with technology?
So Okay, a few weeks back, we had a training with the UNFPA, which is the United Nations Population Fund. And one thing they did was first to build the capacity, because in the absence of building or strengthening the capacity of key stakeholders, so that includes law enforcement, the academia, CSO space, and even traditional gatekeepers, we might not be able to properly identify when an act consists of or would be tagged as digital violence. So we have agencies such as NICDA, we have agencies such as NAPTIP that continue to handle these cases, and we also have civil society organizations. So one thing that we would be saying, we have sufficient data. In fact, it's been stated that we've had about 45% increase in the spate of digital violence from what we have in previous years. So that in turn means that we need to double up on the effort towards tackling digital violence. But one thing that we would be seeing come 2026 is that all relevant stakeholders in the field will be able to properly gather data, and they will be able to properly address these issues. Now, technologically facilitated gender-based violence is multifaceted, and it therefore requires a national response. So it's not an issue for civil society organizations alone. It's not an issue for law enforcement alone. It requires collective efforts. We also need people to be able to open up to speak. We need to eliminate the culture of silence. That way we know how prevalent digital violence are in various parts of the country, and we'll be able to develop relevant programs to be able to address this prevalence based on the needs of the various communities that require this implementation.
Yeah, so I'd like you to also tell us about the need to domesticate the VAPP Act, what it will do in a society where we've seen a prevalence of gender-based violence.
Sorry, I didn't get the question. Could you take it again?
Okay, so I said I'd like you to also talk about the need to domesticate the VAPP Act, that is the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. And of course, yes, we've seen a lot of situations where GBV seems prevalent in certain communities. So how important is the domestication of these acts?
So basically, the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act is a progressive piece of legislation. And prior to now, we didn't have a holistic legislation that expands greatly on some crimes such as rape. If we look at the VAPP Act, it gives us a holistic approach towards rape. It also talks about things like protection order, and it talks about fine, it talks about being an accessory to various crimes, and then the punishments that are ascribed. So in a nutshell, VAPP is the way to go. It is the step in the right direction. Is it due for review? Yes. Can there be room for improvements? Of course, yes. But right now, it's better than having a snippet of laws all over the place that do not particularly address issues of violence in persons or violence, gender-based violence as a whole. So with the VAPP, we see that things such as harmful widowhood practices or traditional practices are addressed. We see that things around defilement or rape are addressed. We see that things around even the use of harmful substance. We see that even if someone was just watching or someone aided in a little way towards the commission of a particular crime, that person will also be held accountable. So the VAPP is the foundation for which we are able to build all of the advocacy and all of the good work that civil societies are currently doing in the country. It's the foundation for which we're able to actively engage with law enforcement. We're able to bring on board the judiciary. We're able to train school teachers. We're able to have gender decks at various MDAs and all. The VAPP gave rise to all of this. So yes, it's very important for us to domesticate the VAPP. But again, for us to be able to achieve this, it requires political will. It also requires evidence-based advocacy. We also need community pressure, because civil societies alone are not able to undertake this. We understand that many states are still hesitant because of cultural misconceptions. Some of them think that not because the law itself is inadequate, but because they feel like it is alien, it's something that is strange from what they're used to. But one of the most effective ways that we can approach this is to localize our advocacy. Okay. So you break it down to a point where it's very comprehensible for persons even at the grassroots. We can also engage the spouses of governors. We can engage state houses of assembly, traditional institutions, faith-based organizations, community gatekeepers, who also influence public opinion and wield a lot of power. So when people really understand the VAPP, and they understand that it doesn't just protect women and children alone, but it also looks at protecting men and boys and even the elderly, it also comprises things like property rights. We will now start to experience that resistance towards domesticating the VAPP would reduce. Okay. Then we would see that on civil society's end, we also need to keep presenting data because it's very important. We need to keep presenting data that illustrates the importance of domesticating the VAPP in all of those communities.
All right, thank you so much, Gladys, for championing this cause. We hope that the indices in terms of violent attack cases will reduce in our various localities and homes to ensure a safer society. But then it was nice having you, Gladys Emmanuel, share these details with us on the news. Thank you.